Hello, and welcome to the Dead Man Walking podcast. I am your host, Repeatedly Dead Fred, author of the soon to be released memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is actually what happened to me. Thus, the name Repeatedly Dead Fred. Makes sense, right?
Thanks.
Today, I have with me Julia Langley, who fits in so many of the boxes that I like to talk to people about. So she is a motivational speaker, a best-selling author, and works with some minorly talented people at Cirque du Soleil. And she teaches breath work and all sorts of things. So, Julia, thanks for coming on. I'm so happy to have you today.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, honored to be talking to you and talking about all of these topics, all of the above.
Yeah, we might have to do a part one and part two.
Sounds
So,
good to me. I'm in.
eh, and we had a bit of an adventure getting together on this. So, partly your car's fault.
I blame everything on my car. It has a name. Tulip is her name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's Tulip's fault.
So I actually proposed that while Julia was at the mom and pop auto shop, that we actually record from there because I love these things when things go off the rails and sort of like live TV. I thought it would be fun, but it just didn't work out. And then Julia decided to time travel for her second attempt at this. So she broke the space time continuum, but we are here. We're here.
That's right. We finally made it. We finally made it in the same universe at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So, what do you want to start off with? Do you want to talk about your book, your coaching, or Cirque?
Oh my goodness, there's so many topics that I talk, and they all sort of tie together, to be honest with
Mm-hmm.
you. My career, a lot of people know me as a singer because I sang for years. I started singing when I was 2.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So now that I'm only 29, wink, wink.
Mm-hmm.
Just kidding, really. But I did start singing when I was 2 years old. So music was always a part of my life. And I really grew up in that. And it was just a natural thing for me. I didn't go to college for music. I actually went for business, but it
Mm-hmm.
just always pulled me back in. Performing in general always pulled me back in. So I'm a classical piano player and singer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what sucked me into the performing world. And I did that for a long time. I traveled 20 different countries, all 50 states in the US, and was able to travel and perform doing what I love. I did have clients though when I wasn't on the road that I did work with, coaching clients that I worked with. And years and years of knowledge when you work for a company like that for so long, and you also do your own, so you're really working for yourself because you're a freelancer and you're contracting. But
Mm-hmm.
I learned I've had everything happen, everything go wrong that could possibly go wrong, every challenge that you can imagine, and
Mm-hmm.
learning how to navigate those challenges, sidestep them, and create who you are and who you want to be. So it's a becoming of who you are. It's how I've seen my own life. Every step is just another step in becoming who I was put on earth to be. And I started to realize that I have a lot of knowledge that can't be learned in a book anywhere. And I wanted to, part of my passion is to be able to share that with other people who want to take the stage, whether it be as an entrepreneur, a speaker, singer, even if you're an author. The point I want to make is that we all use our voices every single day. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not a speaker. Well,
Mm-hmm.
yes, you are. Yes, you are. Because sometimes you have to get up there and you have to introduce yourself. And that's public speaking. Hello. It's
Mm-hmm.
public speaking. And how you use those first 15 seconds is so important as to whether people will listen to you, or they want to know more, or they want to lean into what you have to say. So this is really what I coach people on: how to garner that attention, how to hold the stage, how to hold the attention and really add value. So many
Mm-hmm.
people have a message that they want to get out, but they really don't know how. And using your voice, speaking, performing, that's the best way in the world to get your
Mm-hmm.
voice out.
For sure. And when I was teaching in college, I was a business professor. Every class I taught, I emphasized to them that your ability to make a presentation is going to differentiate your career from the other students who don't do anything about learning how to do presentation. And I told them, go to Dale Carnegie, go to Toastmasters. Like it's such a benefit to you. And
Well, it's so true, you know, and especially now we have so many modern technologies. And what I find is that people use that as a way to sort of hide a little bit. Public speaking is
mhm,
not always easy. Stepping up, making yourself vulnerable, it's hard. It's hard to
mhm,
do. Making connections, networking. And I'll say this, and although it may not seem like it now, when I was younger, I was really awkward, or at least I felt like I was awkward. I don't know how
mhm,
other people saw me, but if I'd see somebody coming, I would run for the hills because I always thought that I was said the wrong thing. Like I would never know the right thing to say, hey, and then I just go blank, you know? So
mhm.
I would avoid it. And you know, and that might have, who knows how that came across. Maybe I, you know, thought I was too good. Or a lot of times these people that we think that they're arrogant or snobbish are really painfully shy. And that was sort of what was
Yeah.
happening to me. And when you learn, you have to you have to face it and you have to step towards it instead of away from it. And when you can step towards that and then really learn how to use your voice and the stage as a platform to do good, the
Mhm.
sky's the limit.
Yeah, most people think I'm extremely extroverted. I believe I'm more introverted, but I just put myself out there. I went for drinks with a buddy of mine from MBA school the other week, and he said, what I remember most about you is that you spent most of your time, I don't know if this is good or bad, saying, hey, it's me. I'm here. Everybody, notice me. And, 20 years later, I can call up any professor I had, and for sure they remember me, good or bad.
Right. Well, what do they say? There is no bad publicity
Mhm,
nowadays. But the fact is that you took the chance and you stepped out. And that's
mhm,
really ultimately where it starts, is taking that leap for the next step in your life's journey, in becoming. You have to take the leap. Sometimes
mhm,
that starting is the hardest part. Once you get in the flow, it goes. But
mhm.
man, sometimes it's just not easy, you know,
Yeah,
and but
for
worth it.
sure.
Definitely
Mindset.
starts there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
mindset, attitude, whatever you want to call it. Um, you've just got to work on it. When I was in the intermittent fasting coaching world, um, I would tell people you have to feed your mind as much as your belly.
Absolutely. I mean, that says it all right there. You know, working out, I've always been working for Cirque, you know, you're working
Mhm,
with all these athletes, you got to keep up. So
mhm,
I've always been big into fitness. And the thing I loved most about fitness was not what it did for me physically, but what it did for me up here.
yeah.
World of difference. And
Mhm,
food, I'm sure it's the same way. That's not my area of expertise, but I do know I am a trainer though, and I do
mhm,
know what physical fitness can do for your mind and your body and your confidence, which is my area of expertise.
mhm,
Confidence and your ability and your resilience. Your
mhm. I can't tell you how many people have commented that once they've gone through their 3 or 6 or 12 months of intermittent fasting, one of the biggest changes in their life is their confidence because it changes your entire gut biome. It changes your amounts of serotonin, which is mostly made in your digestive tract, not in your brain like most people think. And it's just astounding and very rewarding to see how these people change their lives. And I imagine you have a lot of that with the work you do.
Absolutely. And that it's my favorite part of the work actually is really watching that transformation, watching the cocoon or watching what was I mean, I've seen people that could, when it came time to step in front of a group of people, they literally would run. And I mean, physically run away. I've had people hide in the bathrooms, you know, they just could not do it. It was literally a fear up there with death. It was like death to them. That and that is, it's true for a lot of people. And then all of a sudden, well, it's not all of a sudden, it's a lot of work. Okay. It's a lot of work, a lot of overcoming, but then they one day do it and realize nothing terrible happened.
Yeah.
And they start to grow that confidence muscle. And lo and behold, the butterfly emerges. And then the sky's the limit. Like, to watch them really blossom, I'm just sitting there like with my mouth open. I'm like, I knew you had it in you. I knew you had it in you. But you really had to pull it out, you know.
Do you have one particular story you might be able to share about somebody who was in that paralyzed position?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I'm thinking of one client in particular when I say that. And so this what I was just talking about, this was an actual client of mine. So it would come time to give a presentation and she would not go through with it. Literally wouldn't go through with it. So then I would say, okay, we need to practice. All right, practice an interview. We'll go in here and do it. She wouldn't show up. It came time. And not only was it not her not showing up, if she did show up, then it was like dealing with a bear. All right. This angry, like hostile. I was like, oh my God, human being. But it wasn't that she was so fearful, and that fear controlled every aspect of her life. I mean, this is a severe case of it. And a lot of people, it's not as severe, but we all have a little bit of this in us.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I've been performing for years. And if I had a performance where I knew that I was being reviewed in the Los Angeles Times. All right. It's a big news. There's nerves that are going to come with that. What if they don't like me? What if I'm not good enough? What if they beat me up? What if my friends open the page of the newspaper tomorrow and they read horrible things about me? These are very, very real fears. But this particular person that ran and hid in the bathroom, she emerged at some point and said, you know, I'm gonna try this. And then found out that she was successful on a small scale, and that people listened to what she had to say. And she was like, oh, this feels good. Yeah. And you can do more. So the next time we do it, let's try this. So it was a process with her as we grew and grew and grew. And now I'm talking to this person that, like, she can fall down on the stage and she's like, oh, all right, I'm back. Let's go. She can trip over her words, doesn't care. I saw her perform one time, like her costume was falling off. Didn't care. Let's go. So I started laughing. I'm like, we've created a monster here. But the fact of the matter is, she has so much resilience in her that she will win. She will win because she has so much resilience that she will not let it beat her. And this, to me, is ultimately that. I mean, that's a winner right there.
Yeah. So do you have any insight into what finally allowed her to take that little step, you know, closer to the ledge and actually try that first presentation and get out there?
I do think that this person has a tiny competitive streak. It was there the whole time. And, you know, everyone's personality is a little different. So what drives them is going to be different. And as a coach, I have to recognize that. That's part of what I do is recognizing people's unique strengths and weaknesses. So when I
Mhm.
look at an individual and say, okay, we have a confidence issue here, what is holding them back, first of all, and what is going to drive them forward? And this particular person saw other people being successful at something she really wanted, but
Mhm.
wasn't allowing herself to do. But the thing is that if we're talking to somebody right now that is suffering, or not suffering from this, but feels this pain that I'm talking about right
I think
now.
it's suffering.
Okay, suffering. Okay, let's say suffering. If anybody is suffering through this or going through this, right? You can't go from doing nothing to walking out on the stage at Madison Square Garden, all right? You have to start small. You have to be ready for what it is you're doing, all right? So I have seen people that go too big too soon, and then they're mentally and physically can't handle the pressure that comes with it. But we started her small, and little by little by little by little, she has grown. And now she's like standing on stage talking about she's a big time advocate for the American Heart Association.
Mhm.
She's speaking on their behalf. It blows my mind what she's been able to accomplish. Yeah. And she's
Maybe
just
she.
one. She's just one of several. I've also seen clients that it helps them find their people. So for example, I'm thinking of one who is more into music,
Mhm.
that I worked with, and he was I don't want to say lost, but just there was a vacant part of his life. There was something missing from his life. And I do a couple of shows. I created and direct a couple of shows a year. So I gave him the opportunity to participate in those shows. And he discovered his love for being on the stage and for
Mhm.
performing. And from that, because he was a great musician that no one knew existed, someone saw him and said, "Hey, are you interested in being part of a band?" And he said, "Yes." I mean, it was like the biggest moment of his life, right?
Mhm.
So then he started performing regularly, and guess what happens? I mean, he just came into his own. He found his tribe. He found his true love, the one thing in his life that will never leave. It will never leave him. He will have
Mhm.
music until the day he passes on to another world. He will always have that. And it drives him day and night. Music. That was the one thing that was missing from his life. So now we're talking about another person who was lost a little bit, foggy, trying to find their way, found music, found the stage, authoritative, takes ownership in what they're doing, the confidence boost that comes from knowing who you are and that
Mhm.
you're special and that somebody wants what you have to offer. It's what he needed. So more than making his music better, he built confidence. And now he can just take on anything. He's like, yeah, I'm going to go do this. Or yes, I'm going to go do this. Well, are you afraid? Nah, it's going to be fine.
Mhm.
And then there comes that resilience.
And sometimes when things go bad, that's when it becomes even more fun because you get that little extra bit of improvising, and you know you
I
get to
think that's a
really
great
show
way
off
to
your
look at it.
talent.
When mayhem comes to town, things get really fun and interesting.
Mhm.
And
I would tell my
adventure.
students, if you mess up your presentation, nobody knows what you were supposed to say.
That's right.
You know, nobody. I mean, just
It's
go
your
with it.
story. It's your story, right?
Mhm. And I wonder how many people are out there in the same boat as that gentleman who really just don't know their why. Like they haven't been able to find whatever it is that's I shouldn't say complete them, but like just put them to that next level
That's
where they
exactly
can
right.
excel.
That's exactly right. And it keeps me going. That's why I do what I do, because I do believe that we all have this unique specialness to us, each person. But I think some people never find what it is that makes them special. And when they and that's so important, I think, to grow and to really go shoot towards success in life, is understanding what you're really good at and really what sets you apart, because there's something there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've known for a long time that my gift is speaking. I can't walk and chew gum, but I can speak.
Very well, I might add.
Well, thank you.
You have a great voice, as a matter of
Thank
fact.
you.
I can't walk and chew gum either. I trip over my own feet. Terrible.
The yeah, but I can't sing. It's funny. My grandfather was a classically trained violinist from Russia, Ukraine, and led an orchestra in Winnipeg, which is where I grew up, for all the vaudeville. So that tells you how old I am. And
The 35. So, yeah, 35.
Yeah. And I got no musical talent except my voice. That's all I have. I have his violin, but I can't do anything with it.
I always say when people come to that maybe you have more than you think. You could have explored it a little bit more, possibly, which is why I think a music education early in life is extremely important. And I think parents often think of it as a just something extracurricular often. But it is known a fact that music education at an early age helps a cognitive growth, and it's really good for the brain. All right. And not only that, but it's artistic and expressive. And so it's great in a physiological way as well as a therapeutic way for people. And I'm a big proponent of arts education.
For sure. Kids. And there's a strong correlation between people who participate in music and have good math skills.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a little trick. And this is not scientific, but this is something I've discovered along the way. If you go, and let's say you go hear some live music, go hear a band on the weekends, ask the guys what they do. Quite often, if they're moonlighters, musicians, they're daytime engineers. It's really interesting. There is a huge correlation between the two.
Well, my brother-in-law is a world-class statistician.
Well, there you go.
So, and he as part of his professoring work, he does research on the Beatles.
Music.
He's also a musician and
loves it. Because there's structure to music. What it does, and I will say this, that it lights up 12 different centers of our brain. It's one of the few things that will light all of the centers of the brain up. All right. Because it accesses it accesses the creative side of the brain, it accesses the rational side of the brain, or the structured side of us as well. So it marries the two together. So really, to be a good musician, you have to be pretty well balanced. I mean, you have to understand the artistry, but you also have to understand the structure of it as well. So those musicians, which are prodigies, if you will, they have this nice balance between the two. And it's so funny because as a classical piano player, I do work with some pianists as well as vocalists, and I call frontman. Vocals are my first instrument, but the difference in the personalities between the two is quite striking. The frontmen are always going to be a lot flashier. They're all about the art. Getting them to come to rehearsal is they're just la 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 la. And then you have the piano players, and they're like do, 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 do. They've got the structure about them and the way that they approach music. The good musician is going to be able to do both well. They're going to be able to find that structure, operate creatively within parameters. And it's interesting. I think it's the scientific part of what music does to the brain is just fascinating to me.
And perfect examples is, you look at the Beatles and, you know, stellar musicians. They were all just stellar musicians. And some people say Paul was the best voice in rock and roll of that generation. But to see them perform live, they're, you know, they just weren't dynamic. But you look at the bands they were up against, like you look at Mick Jagger and, you know, and Keith Richards or Led Zeppelin, like, you know, Robert Plant, unbelievable. But Jimmy Page, he wasn't the shrinking violet out there. He was crazy and all over the stage.
Right. But, you know, you bring up an interesting point, and this affects speaking too. So this is a performing. So we're getting out of the structure of music and more into the performance element, I think, of it. And this applies to anyone that wants to step out on the stage. All right. Stylistically, the Rolling Stones, you know, all these bands that you just listed, they're mind-blowing on stage. They might not be the better singer, all right? But they had a uniqueness and they had a style. And this is what I'm talking about, finding that uniqueness in each individual, finding your personal style and being able to execute it when you're standing up in front of a group of people. That is that's what draws people in, really and truly. And you know, so it's really understanding that creativity within you, that uniqueness, and being able to bring it out. And this goes for speakers, actors, singers. This goes for anybody. The job interview, you want to be memorable in a good way. You're in sales, you got to be memorable. You want people to remember, hey, remember that person that came in with that? She was funny. All right. She was funny, but she knew what she was talking about. And these are all elements of performance that are really important that you're bringing up here.
That's interesting. Job interviews were the one area I was never able to conquer. I never was able to put my best foot forward in a job interview, but put me in front of 200 students. No biggie.
I think well, first of all, it's all speaking, but it's like apples and oranges of the speaking world. They're two completely different things, and there's two completely different approaches. So auditioning, interviewing is its own style of performance, and it's very different. So it's the difference between, you've seen someone who gives the news, all right, and then someone who is interviewing NFL players after the game. It's kind of like that. It's a very different style. It's a different approach. And I'll go even a step further and talk about it in a music sense too. So and people hire musicians and they don't often know what they're hiring. So for example, I do headline. I like to do headliner work. So I'll go in and give a concert for an hour and go home. That's what I do, right? Well, you have to understand the difference in doing that kind of performance, a headline concert performance versus a lounge performance. Two completely different things. You have to understand the difference between doing a musical theater performance in a show and doing a cabaret performance. One, you have to be a character. The other, you have to be yourself. So speaking, interviewing, it's the same thing in the sense that you got to know what the goal is. You got to know what the audience is coming there for. You got to know what the goal is. Once you establish that, then we can get into how you go about winning that audience over. So auditioning is its own performance. And there are very specific strategies that you use in an audition that you would not use. We do the exact opposite when you're in a group of 200 people.
Yeah. An interview is a very artificial construct, and it's sort of a rigged game, I guess. Often, you know, and probably the same with an audition. They already know who they want a lot of the times.
Well, you know what? I'm going to have to play a little bit of devil's advocate on this. And this is the reason this is the reason why. My mentor was a Broadway producer. He was a very famous Broadway producer. He did 18 Broadway shows in 12 years. And one thing that he told me once was that they were producing a show on Broadway, and they had it. The lead was an ingenue, blonde, dimples, blue eyes. Oh, sweet. He said, in walks short, round, not very tall, kind of reddish brown hair, not what you would traditionally call gorgeous, opened her mouth to sing, and was the most divine sound they had ever heard in their entire life. They rewrote the show for her. That girl's name was Bette Midler.
It's amazing.
So that tells you right there, for me, if you've got something good, don't stop because you think it's not what they want. Go for it. All right. Go for it, because it completely changed their minds. And that was the first show that she did with Barry Manilow. That really started her career. Yeah. Yeah.
He's another guy who struggled with his career.
Right. But he started as a piano player, you know.
Okay. So, Julia, I think we're going to have to do a part 2.
Okay. That's great.
Almost out of time. So if people want to talk to you about coaching, and I'm guessing you do remote coaching as well.
Everything I do is actually virtual. So I work with people all over the world.
Okay. So how do people get hold of you and find out what you can do for them?
Well, absolutely. If it's okay, we can I can send my link to you, or would you have me put it in the chat, or I can send it directly to you and you can put it in your link or the messaging for this particular podcast. It's a calendar link. They can certainly sign up with me just to have a conversation, sort of look at what their goals are and get an idea of how I might be able to help them. They can also follow me. I am on Instagram at Cirque.
What? No way.
Jewels. Yeah. I put it up there so you can see that. Cirque Singer Jewels. That's my name on IG. But I'm also on Facebook under my name, Julia Langley, and LinkedIn as well. So I'm on all the socials. But if you want a deeper dive, certainly let's have a conversation. That it costs nothing to have a conversation and just to see where you want to go and moving forward.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And I think we even missed the story of you getting hit by a car.
Yes, we did.
So we'll have to do that.
Point in my life. So next part 2.
Okay. Definitely.
I got lots of stories to share and I had 3 years of my life that were just like getting hit by a car for 3 years. So I would love to have a part 2 and go into that and how it changed my life.
Okay. So maybe part 2, part 3, part 4. We'll see where we go.
Sounds great to me. Looking forward to it.
Thank you so much, Julia. Appreciate you coming on. To everybody listening or watching, thank you for tuning in to the Dead Man Walking podcast. And please like, subscribe, share, go to Julia's links, give her a call, have a good conversation, and have yourself a great week. See you next episode. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.